And now for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 386 of This Old Marketing for Friday, July 28th, 2023. And with me, as he always is, my pal, my colleague, and a guy who hasn't earned quite as much as Barbenheimer did this weekend, Mr. Joe Polizzi.
Did you see him? Did you see either of them?
I have not seen either, but I am very, very impressed with the box office this weekend.
Yeah. Like I'm just looking at Barbie, 155 million domestic, 182 international.
It's amazing. One weekend. One weekend. It's and then incredible. You combine that with Oppenheimer, I think they said it was the fourth best weekend in history. Only and interestingly, what it was, one of the other stats that I saw that was fascinating was it's only behind Avengers Endgame, Avengers, I believe Ultron. No, one of the other Avengers movies, and Star Wars. One of the last Star Wars was the big one, and so all those are sequels, right? So these are original movies. Although, interestingly, people don't know there's 40 Barbie movies. There have been 40 plus Barbie movies.
I didn't know that.
Over the last 20 years. Yeah, there's literally what they call the Barbie the Barbie universe. Yeah, you have the like very much like the Marvel universe or the DC universe, you have the Barbie universe,
really?
Which is there's a whole thing about it. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Is there an Italian Barbie? There is, I'm sure.
I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
There's a Sicilian Barbie. That's the question. That's the most important one.
I'm gonna Barbie.
It's a little bit shorter, but and a little bit shorter, and the hands move like
Take this. Ken, leave the cannoli.
All right, we've already started on the wrong foot with that one.
Yeah.
I know. Actually, I did some research on this because I was infatuated by it. Barbie is a $1 billion brand annually by itself already. This movie here could be reaching up to that point when it gets it'll be definitely north of 500. I mean, it's almost
100%. Yeah, they Lego movied the heck out of this. You know what I mean? I mean, they have
more than that. I'm just interested to see. So this came out, and since the build up to this, it says this. I got the stock price here is up 19%, which added $2 billion in additional market cap to Mattel's stock price.
Yeah.
So all really, really good things. But again, this is getting amazing reviews. I think it's 91% Rotten Tomatoes or something like that.
Apparently people people love it, or people are freaked out by it. I mean, which is very funny. Have you seen
No, I don't know why freaked out.
One of the brilliant, because apparently it speaks to, I have not seen it. So what I'm going on here is all hearsay. So
great. I love it when we comment on things.
Exactly. We have no idea.
Okay, great. Let's comment
perfect.
on the movie.
So let's dive right in. One of the things that I've heard is that it makes fun of, masculinity. It makes fun of feminism. It sort of pokes fun at all of that, right? It pokes fun a little bit of wokeness. And apparently, if you sort of take it the wrong way, there are a lot of apparently men or let's call them the Matt Gaetzes of the world, right? Who went on social media to talk about how woke he thought the movie was and how awful it was. There are a lot of, and it's a brilliant marketing move. What they did was they took all of the 1-star reviews, which are clearly from men, and made them into ads. So, like one says, this movie will kill us all. This movie is perverse. It's like all these great 1-star reviews, and they used it to create ads for the movies on social media. It's just brilliant. It's just so perfect. So yeah, from what I understand, it's sort of just really funny and really, really witty, and not what you expect. That what I've continually hear is like it's not what you think it's going to be. So I'm really curious to see it.
We have Sirius XM in the car, and I was listening to Channel 2, which is their hits channel, and they were doing like a Barbie album marathon. And Ryan Gosling was singing one of the songs. It's Push, which was a Matchbox 20 song.
Yeah.
And Ryan Gosling, I don't know if he's doing this in the movie, but he's singing it just like they do. Like real deep and guttery. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like I don't know if that's how Ryan Gosling sings or if he was just doing an impersonation of a Matchbox 20 song, which hopefully correct me if I'm wrong.
He apparently steals the movie, so wouldn't surprise me. He's so funny. He's so funny and witty, right?
Yeah. So, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Anyways, so what else is going on?
Well, let's see.
You're traveling.
I'm traveling. Yeah, I'm traveling this week. I'm going to the lovely. I haven't been to Toronto since pre-Pandy, so. I'm off to Toronto for the first time in 5 years, so I'm very excited to see my friends north of the border and do a little client work up there. We have a few meetings that we're doing up there, which will be fun. And you're staying local, but you are traveling. While this is being recorded, I'm at MACON, the Marketing AI Intelligence Conference. That's right. Paul's event, yeah.
At Paul's event. So I'm sure I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
I'm meeting there's a lot of people we know that are going to be there. So I'm very excited to see some of our friends. But last week, as most people know, we did the whole North Carolina tour and we did not see Ryan Reynolds at the Wrexham Chelsea.
You did not get to touch the cocoon egg
in Chapel Hill. I really, there was a stand-up Ryan Reynolds cardboard piece that I think my wife might have taken home with her. Nobody can find it anywhere. But we did not. There was no flesh and blood Ryan Reynolds, which was sad.
He wasn't there, or you just didn't see him.
There were people talking that he might have been there, but I thought that if he was there, he would have come.
Like Sasquatch. He would come out.
Yeah, there would have been a sighting somewhere. I didn't see it.
An RR sighting.
I really wanted to not perversely touch him and see if I could bring in some of that Ryan Reynolds magic.
You talked about it really a long time last week. Yeah, it's just
it was. We had a correction on the last one. Laura on our team said that Donnie Wahlberg was not in. What did we say? He was in Backstreet Boys, which he's not. He's in NSYNC, right? We got to get this right now.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
This is we got to look it up.
We have to do a correction because
that was my entire point.
What?
That my entire point was that I had no idea of any of these bands.
But you were the one that brought up 98 Degrees.
No,
right?
You brought up 98 Degrees. You were the one who said it was my favorite band, and I said I don't even know if I can name a song.
Okay, we got to get this whole thing straight.
All right,
Donnie Wahlberg was a founding member of New Kids on the Block.
Okay. Okay. There you go.
So we were way off. Like we were off with all of the boy band stuff.
I see.
I mean, I guess I was because since I brought it up because we were talking about 98 Degrees.
And since we're correcting the record here, the guy that I couldn't think of his name. Remember, I said he was the husband of the woman. Was Nick Lachey. So I was trying to think of Nick Lachey. Yes,
from 98 Degrees, right?
I don't know. I don't. These are the things that I don't know.
Laura, we're going to apologize right now to you. So if you would correct whatever just happened in the last 2 minutes, we'll use that for the next episode.
Okay.
I think we need somebody new on this old marketing team. We need to do like right after like the post, like what's his name does with the post zombie shows. Sure. They show The Walking Dead, and then there's the Walking Dead show about The Walking Dead that you just saw. Yeah. We need to do this old marketing show correcting everything that we just said.
That's right. It's
which
sort
would
of
be
like
twice as long.
Yeah, the response address, kind of like the Democrats or the Republicans do when the other one does a State of the Union. There's a response address. There needs to be a response address.
If anybody wants that job, it pays nothing, but there's glory.
That's right.
Yeah.
We could stick you right into our podcast feed.
Yeah. Just what's that line from The Replacements? Chicks dig scars, glory lasts forever. That's the role.
Yeah, something.
And I didn't mean that. Yeah, that was not a negative comment. That was
I know.
directly from the movie.
Yeah,
because I mean, you got to watch yourself. It's not like we're Jason Aldean or anything. Like, we've got to really be careful with what we say.
Oh well, I mean, I've told you my .com story about when I first joined the consulting firm. Very small, tiny. It was 3 people at the time when I joined. And the first thing they hired me is to run their marketing. This is 1998, I believe, 1997. Okay. And the front page of their website was, so it had lots of bevels. Remember how bevels were really in 1997? Bevels and sort of that aluminum sort of look of websites. That's what it said. And the front page was a quote from Conan the Barbarian, the one where he says, I'll get the quote wrong, but it's something to the effect of, we will conquer. You have to read it in Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? So it's, we will conquer and hear the lamenting of the women. That was the front page of their website. I said, that's got to go.
It's like I am expert web person, 1997, and I'm pretty sure that needs.
I'm not a marketing genius, but I know that has to go.
I don't want to comment. I know you and I were talking a little bit about the whole Jason Aldean thing, the song that I don't know if we want to hit any of that. The only thing I wanted to talk about with that, because I did a little bit of research just in case we talked about the song that's going, like, it's a very controversial song that he released.
Yeah.
It was doing almost nothing. Like, there was nothing going on until CMT pulled the video. Like, there was nobody saying anything. And then my little conspiracy theory, if you will, is that somebody on Jason Aldean's team
said pull it. Yeah, pull it. Yeah.
Pull it and whatever. And I know you'll take some backlash, but it's going to be big for all of us. And then now, because he released the song in May, didn't do anything, pulls the video off of CMT, it goes to number 2 on the Billboard charts right after that.
Yeah.
Marketing. It's marketing. You don't agree with this?
No. I 100% I could see that. I'm my little conspiracy hat is right on with yours. I could absolutely see that. I just think it's a shitty song. It's hard for me to even give it oxygen.
Well, I mean, you could talk about his political views all day long, but don't go ripping on Jason Aldean's musicality.
Oh, I'm going to have to do that, my friend.
Well, you have a lot. You grew up in. You've got
country
friends.
music. I love country music. Country music has been a passion of mine since I grew up in Texas.
You don't like his music.
I do not like Jason Aldean's music. No, I don't like that whole style of
the formula of getting a number 1 hit. He really has that.
You've seen the Bo Burnham sort of bit that he does about
Burnham. I haven't seen.
He has a whole song, about country music, what he calls pop country music, and how it's changed the country music. It's perfect. So I encourage everybody to go look up the Bo Burnham country music song. It's fantastic.
The thing that I love about
that's perfectly the perfect thing for Jason Aldean.
You remember when, I'm sure we talked about it on the show when he did Inside, a Bo Burnham special.
Yeah. Oh yeah, amazing.
When he said that he wanted to save the world with comedy. And he goes through the whole thing. He's like, if your house is on fire and you're in trouble, he's like, call me and I'll tell you a joke. It's like he goes through the whole thing, like all the things that could horribly happen to you. Don't worry, I will help you. Call me, I'll tell you a joke. So
that internet song is, it's so genius. It's annoyingly clever.
He's too smart. So, anyways, I know we talked. We went over our allotted time in news.
We do, and we have a show to do. Yeah, we have a wonderful show.
Yeah, what do we got? What's on?
We have a great show. Well, breaking news, literally as we record this. It won't be so breaking now when this comes live on Friday, but it is breaking news right at the moment. So X marks the spot. Twitter is now X. We'll talk a little bit about how the rebrand actually happened, what it might mean, and whether or not they'll actually start to get sued with the number of trademark infringements that they seem to have violated. But we'll talk a little bit about that, of course. We'll actually question of whether Threads, we started this conversation last week, whether Threads is already unraveling. See what I did there? See what I did?
That's very nice.
Yeah, that's very cute. A couple of articles that have come out recently to talk about how Threads may or may not survive the test of time, and we'll start to have a little conversation over that. Then we'll talk a little bit about OpenAI, and by way of that, mention Google, because both OpenAI have struck local deals with for local news to create local news and are doing experiments on that thing, and then also. The news is contemplating suing OpenAI, right? They're for scraping and getting and using the learning model.
The whole
to
news,
pull their content.
all the news,
a consortium apparently,
all
of the news.
Plenty of
hashtag
news.
All the news that fits.
So not the
print.
news, like the news isn't doing it, but the news as in news.
No, the actual news. That is correct.
Because I was like, did the news?
Thank you for that very pedantic correction. Yes, but I really
that's
appreciate
the first place I go.
Yes.
You know this. Okay.
All right. And then we'll get to some
Q&A, right?
Yeah, we got some great Q&A.
Which we
have two
promised
questions.
to get to both this time.
That's right. We promised to get to both of them this week. We have one audio question, and of course, who phoned in, and then another of someone who wrote in to us and asked us a question. So love both of those, and so want to spend a little time on that. Then we'll get finally to our rants and raves, where Joe will talk a little bit about Macon, where he'll be this week, and some of the success that they've had, and we'll talk a little bit about CMS software. I know that sounds boring, but trust me, there's some interesting things about what's going on in media.
Another commentary that we'll never forget.
That's right.
Let's talk about CMS. It's like,
CMS software.
And I was like, hey, I've got this great idea to start this whole content platform.
Yeah.
It's going to be very exciting. What's it on? I'm going to talk about content management systems.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about WordPress.
Don't bet the farm on that one.
Yeah.
So, no, that'll be
that one's going to light the world on fire with that.
All right.
Okay.
So shall we start with X?
We shall indeed. We're going to link to two stories here in our show notes, with one from The Verge and the other from Media Post. This is coming out literally as early as yesterday when it all went down. And the headline from The Verge is that Twitter is being rebranded as X after Elon tweeted about it all night. The bird site is shedding its feathers. Boy, the puns have been replete, flipping the bird, X marks the spot, all that stuff, So X.com now redirects to Twitter.com following a tweet from Twitter owner Elon Musk today, and that meant yesterday, which was Monday. An interim X logo will soon replace the Twitter bird logo, which it already has. Around midnight last night, Elon started tweeting and did so for hours about the Twitter rebrand to X, the one-letter name he's used repeatedly in company and product names forever. It started with a tweet saying, "Soon we shall bid adieu to the Twitter brand, and gradually all the birds." Oh, gosh, I'm sure pass the bong, Elon. Okay. Anyway, so that article goes on to then talk about a little bit how he sent email to the employees, basically talking about how the company would become X, meaning that none of the employees knew this was going to happen. So I'm sure they were really happy to wake up on Monday morning and see
the marketing team loves surprises.
Is there a marketing team anymore?
When you're doing a whole rebrand? No, there's no communication team for sure. We know at Twitter.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sure there's somebody working in marketing. And there's at least got to be salespeople.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Linda Yaccarino, she got to tweet out, "X is here. Let's do this." And then if you just click on over to the Media Post article, which is that now in the past tense, Twitter rebrands to X and begins transformation to the Everything app. Twitter has officially rebranded to X, as Media Post. The change follows a chain of Musk companies that incorporate the letter X. Really? Does it?
SpaceX.
Oh, okay.
X.com.
All right.
Didn't he have X.com?
Well, that's Twitter. I mean, other than SpaceX, I'm trying to anyway.
No, he started X was the original name for PayPal.
I remember that. I do remember that. Anyway.
Yeah. So
the thinking is in the same vein, says Media Post, as the poet E. E. Cummings, an American poet who wrote his poems in all lowercase letters. Cummings' use of all lowercase letters was intended to convey a sense of rebellion against conventional rules of language and syntax. And some writer on Media Post is really proud of themselves for that little gem. But yeah, it seems kind of weird. The website twitter.com remains active, of course. Branding on the app version of the platform did not appear to change. I haven't checked my app recently to see
the app. The app is still the bird. Okay, this is still the bird as of Tuesday. Yeah, the app is still the bird, but online you're looking at an X on the top.
That's right. That's exactly right. So anyway, that article goes on
by a user who said to Elon that you can use my X.
Well, and that brings up a great point, which is something we can also talk about. And then I want to totally get your take on this whole brand thing, which is apparently Microsoft, Meta, and 90 others have trademarks on the X. So, I mean, suing Elon in 5, 4, 3, 2, right? So,
yeah.
What do you think? First of all, what do you think about the brand, and then what do you think about its, the ability for it to have any longevity?
Well, I feel that Elon was very disappointed in the news coverage over the past couple weeks.
You think
that it really sort of went over to the Thread side and said, we've got to do something, and might as well, of course, this is not new news. He's been talking about doing X, the everything app, the entire time. So I saw, I think somewhere, that a tweet is not a tweet anymore.
What is it?
It's a zeet.
Gosh!
It's a XEET.
I'm with you.
Then this is breaking news, and Linda Yaccarino is changing her name to Linda Jaccarino with an X, which I like Jaccarino a lot better. It just flows off the tongue.
Yes.
And basically, if you change your name, if you're a Twitter employee and now ex-employee, and you change your name to something with an X, you get a bonus.
Gotcha.
Which I'm excited about. And mine, if I was working there, I would be Polixi. I would change both the Z's to X's, and we would go from there. I'm honestly, I know the headline for this episode is going to be something around X because this is what we're talking about, but I'm tired. I'm tired of talking about Elon just making these knee-jerk reactions to things and trying to figure out what Twitter needs to be when Twitter just should be Twitter and build on the community that they've had for the last dozen plus years. And I think that's what everyone wants. And my other take is, I know we're going to talk about Threads, and I think it moves right into Threads. The opportunity that X has, I don't even want to call it X, but the opportunity that they have is they're willing to do the things that the other social platforms aren't. Elon has made that very clear. Elon will talk about all the things and let anyone talk about whatever they want. And Messari and Zuckerberg don't want to have that happen on Threads, and which is maybe one of the reasons why Threads needs to find its footing, because X, Twitter, is very much of the moment. They're very much about news, very much about politics, and you're not seeing that, at least for right now. I don't know if you ever will on Threads. So he'll have this competitive advantage because he literally is willing. It's funny. I was listening to our friends. Steve Davis was talking about the podcast. Mr. Beast Manager was on My First Million podcast, and I was listening to it.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was thinking about this because Twitch banned gambling on its site, and the opportunist in that whole thing was Kick, which is underwritten, subsidized, owned, I think, by Stake, the online gambling company. Kick can survive and do really, really well because they're willing to do the thing that Twitch is not willing to do. Talk about gambling content 24/7.
Right.
Because it obviously helps their business. And I thought the same thing is true of what Elon wants to do. Elon will go down to the depths and talk about whatever issues are the most divisive. And as you pointed out many times, when there's that tension, there's people.
Well, it's true.
And I don't know how to monetize that necessarily. And of course, that's why they've lost a lot of advertisers, because it's not quote unquote brand safe. But you will have people flock to X because of that. And whatever X becomes doesn't really matter. It's still going to be the place where you want to talk about things in the moment. It's going to be Twitter, and Threads right now is not that place.
Yeah. Well, and this is a nice segue to the Thread story, which we can talk about, because honestly, so my take as a marketing and brand guy is that this will at some point become a case study, because this is just, this is exactly the wrong way to do it. And not to even talk about how fumbled the actual design of the X really is. I mean, it looks like it like 1990 called, and it wants its logo back, right? And it's not good. Black is almost certainly not the right color. A black X is not going to be the right, I mean, it's just,
I think it
just
sends
doesn't,
a positive message.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. And so there are so many things wrong with it from a brand design standpoint that it's not even worth really talking about. But more than that, it is the timing of things, because what you want with any sort of big brand relaunch is something in the barrel that actually changes the experience or changes the promise that the brand is going to convey. And so if you believe that Twitter right now is a damaged brand, well, what you then have done is you've brought all that damage to the new brand. And if you believe that Twitter is a beloved, safe brand, you haven't brought any of that over to the X, because you're saying, I'm switching it, I'm changing it. And it's like, because you didn't change anything about the experience or change anything about the business model or have anything in your barrel ready to fire that says this is ready to go. We have a payments thing, or we have a new application, or we're changing our business model, or all with nothing else besides we're slapping a new coat of paint and a new mark on it. You haven't changed anything really. You've just confused people. And to the extent that we're now we're calling it zeeting.
Zeet.
I mean,
I'm gonna zeet.
It's just
I want my It's like a muffin.
It's
like a zeet
just
muffin.
not good. So that does bring us to Threads, and so we'll link to a couple of different.
Well, before you go, we'll go up here. Before I want to say, but I'll play devil's advocate with you. I think this is very much on brand. This is, I mean, it's on
brand
Twitter,
for Elon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But the new Twitter, if it's almost like the house is on fire, I want to go watch it burn. Right? That's the current brand. This is very much in line with everything else that Elon has done. And by the way, in his career, like, when did he said, how long was it ago? He showed the picture and showed the image of this is what the Cybertruck is going to look like. Well, they're releasing it now.
Yeah.
It's taken a decade, but he's doing it. So he's done this, like, I'm going to go to the moon thing quite a few times in a different way, but he's done this. So maybe it's on brand, and we should say he's just this brilliant strategic thinker.
Oh,
I'm way
not sure
ahead
about
of
that.
us.
Yeah.
I don't believe that, but I think we should.
A broken clock is right twice a day, right?
I get a couple people that email me on occasion because I'm almost always negative Elon. And I've been accused of not seeing anything positive about Elon because I don't like him as a person necessarily, but not that I know him very well. He just doesn't call me back. So anyways, I don't know. We can talk about Threads now.
Well, I'll say this. So, which is, he's built amazing companies, right? SpaceX is an amazing company, and Tesla is an amazing company. Yep. And so I think what is so disappointing is the opportunity that he had to become someone who really is considered thoughtful, innovative, creative, and that and to, you know, there's a funny thing. We often talk in marketing about authenticity, right? How we need to be a more authentic, or brands should be authentic to themselves. And as thought leaders or as influencers, we have to be authentic and authentic. And what we tend to do is we conflate authenticity with good, right? We conflate with being nice or with being really net positive in the world. And all authentic means is basically of undisputed origin. So you can be an authentic asshole.
You.
Yeah, you can be, you know, so what we may be seeing is the authentic Elon. So I'll say this, Elon is being very authentic to himself with this rebrand.
That's what I think. So,
yeah.
So kudos to Elon, and then now to Zeet Light, Threads.
Yes, there we go. Well, again, a link to two stories here in the in our wonderful show notes here. The first from marketingbrew.com, which opens up by saying Threads contends users with retention. Thread contends with user retention and complaints week after debut. The app's daily active user count is more than halved since the beginning of July per one analysis. The article opens up by saying this month, Pizza Hut referenced a NSFW, not safe for work meme on Threads. It was subsequently deleted by the chain, one of many brands trying to figure out Threads, Meta's new Twitter competitor that came out on July 5th. Brands have flocked to the platform in droves, looking to capture eyeballs on the new platform. However, Threads has experienced a sizable drop in traffic since its debut. We covered this last week.
Sure.
That's so last week, says the Marketing Brew. Threads clocked 100 million users in its first week, according to analysis firm SimilarWeb. The app saw 49 million daily active users on July 1st, just days after it rolled out. I think that analysis is not good, because would you call signups an active user? I mean,
no, you can't. That's why we don't know. They were using the wrong base. Probably what they have right now with, what is it, the 23 million daily actives 1 week later? Is that what we're looking at? Probably a more realistic number.
Yeah.
And you don't even know what a user is at this point because it hasn't been long enough.
That's right. Because all you had to do was say yes. A lot of people said yes.
Yep.
Put up one thread to say hi, and with a question mark, literally, and that's kind of it. Anyway, the second article that we will link to here comes to us from platformer.news, and it is basically the headline here reads 5 reasons Thread could still go the distance. Engagement is down a week later, they say, but the prize is still there, going the distance. That's every time I read this headline, that's what I was thinking of. On July 5th, Meta released Threads into the world. Its arrival came months after anticipation, and ultimately a bit earlier than Meta had planned. Elon Musk's characteristically self-defeating move to limit free users viewing a small number of tweets each day had given Meta an unusually opportune moment to strike, and it seized the moment. The outsized success that follows, Threads was the fastest app to hit 100 million downloads and later blew past 150 million, came as a surprise to almost everyone involved. That includes the app's makers at Meta, who hadn't built a homegrown hit this big since Facebook itself. This article goes on to basically talk about some of the other ways that it has launched and some of the, I guess, counter arguments to what New York Times has said. Well, it might be the next Google Plus because Google Plus had 100 million users, and basically the article goes on to make 3 or 5 really interesting arguments, I would suspect, on how Instagram and Meta can make Threads a success. So, which is it at this point? I mean, I think it's probably still too early to tell. But do you have a gut feel one way or the other? Is Threads going to become a thing, or like all my non-social media marketing people, like my friends who aren't in our business at all, are kind of off Threads already. They're like, it's boring. There's nobody talking about anything. And so it's fascinating data point for me.
Yeah, I think that, and we saw that early when I signed up, and you immediately started to seeing some older posts, and it wasn't of the moment as we just talked about. I think they missed an opportunity there. Not that's gone by the wayside. There's still plenty of opportunities, especially with the fact that the Threads Instagram integration is frankly brilliant. I mean, they will continue to feed new people onto Threads. So just because you lost some from the beginning, people might come back. But I don't know exactly what Threads is supposed to be if we're not talking about the news of the moment.
Other than not Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So before this episode, I went on to Threads to see what everybody's talking about. And you know what everybody's talking about? They're talking about X.
Oh, they're talking about X. Okay.
They're talking about X. They're talking about Twitter.
Well, I was going to say that might be the thing, right? That might be the actual the rebranding might be a stimulus, right? It might be so this is another reason that it's not a good idea for him to have made news, quite honestly, because it's yet another reason to go talk about something on Threads.
But you could talk about that as long as they're not blocking you on X, you go talk about it on there as well.
Go Z on it. Yeah.
But it's no secret that Zuckerberg wanted to totally duplicate Twitter. So now that Twitter's name is available, why don't they just become Twitter? Like, go get it. Musk doesn't want it.
Well, that's a fact.
So just say, hey, good, you're going to be X. You keep doing your thing, Elon.
That is a fascinating idea.
We'll give you $1 billion. I know you want some money against this. We'll give you $1 billion. We want
the name of the domain.
And we want the domain. And we will take on Twitter with our new Threads Lite.
That some days you have genius ideas, and that my friend is a genius. I hadn't even thought about that. But that is brilliant. You just go to Twitter and you say, listen, we'll take the domain, the bird, we'll take it all off your hands, my friend. We'll take all of it. And they've got
plenty of cash. They've got $100+ billion.
And we won't even sue you for the X trademark. In fact, we'll just swap them. We'll just swap trademarks.
That's actually Microsoft. That's what Microsoft should do, but they don't have anything like lying in the wings.
Yeah,
Threads is already there, and say done. It's like, Elon, you go do, and actually you could get a lot more money for it. Because I think Elon wants out. I think Elon wants to do the everything app and doesn't necessarily want to be in the Twitter space itself or what Twitter was. So great, do the switcheroo. Call it a day.
I think that's a drop the mic moment, because I think that is perfect. That's just so good. That's so good. Yeah.
Well, we'll see if that ever happens. That would be the smartest move.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think that is a fantastic move.
But again, I think that we are in agreement that this is so early that we don't know what Threads is. But what I don't know is, what is it to become? I don't know. Is it the community marketplace talking about what's going on at the moment? Because that's certainly not it. And it doesn't seem like they want to go that direction, because they're saying they really don't want to have news and politics on the platform.
Yep.
But if you're politically agnostic and you're news agnostic, I don't see how Threads can be in the moment, because that's 75% of the conversation. You're talking about what's going on politically. You're talking about what's going on in the world in news, and you're talking about Barbenheimer.
Yeah,
that's what the platform should be talking about, where you can get some thought leader and you get some no-name folks that follow them making some smart comments, and you get a conversation going. I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where this idea can't happen, obviously, right? Because of the egos involved here, and what would actually happen, and I don't think that Meta wants the Twitter brand that per se, because I
think he does.
We'll see. We'll see. I think it may now be spoiled enough where it's sort of like, but if Threads, pulling in Twitter now, it may be spoiled bread, right? You know what I mean? It's like it's a little bit old and dated at this point. But I'm still, I love the idea. I still love the idea.
5 billion. Put it out there.
Yeah, it's an easy thing that they could do, and I mean, literally over a beer, they could figure all this out.
It would be fun. Now that would be something we could talk about on Threads. Finally,
yes. Well, we would be talking about it on Twitter threads, you know.
I want to get a jersey. I want to get an Arsenal jersey, and I want to have Jaccarino on the back of it. Only Arsenal fans would get that reference. But yeah, so there you go. Right. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
There you have it. All right, let's let's move on because we want to get to the questions this week. We don't want to be sort of Jimmy Kimmel and make all of these wonderful questioners like Matt Damon and never have room for them. So we're going to skip the OpenAI. See, that's an inside baseball reference. If you watch Jimmy Kimmel and Matt Damon, you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's get to our questions because our Q&A is fantastic, and we have 2 of them this week to talk about. Both of them fantastic questions. Let's do the written one first, and it comes to us courtesy of Linda Ray. Hi, Linda. Thank you very much for listening. A fantastic question. And Linda says, I'm embarking on how to better manage content assets with how to strategize content, how to organize content, diversifying across all the different channels, and she names all the channels there. Basically, she's saying it's too much. And I know your customer is vital because developing personas is essential, but things change. We're starting over. Planning ahead seems super logical and practical, but sometimes real-time creativity sparks an idea, an answer. So how does one restart all you're doing with baby steps on what content goes where? In other words, how do you sort of reboot your content platform across all these channels if the story changes, is what I'm taking her question to mean. Did I get that right, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's right. My quick gut is, Linda, thank you for the question. And second, this is something that Robert and I know firsthand because we go into every organization and that's the thing that they're dealing with. You go in and the average company is just creating and distributing content 10 to 13 different ways, and they're not making an impact at all. They're not driving any of the KPIs, and they're not building an audience. And maybe it's just a simple, you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money. Do a cursory audit of here's all the things that we're doing. And just say, okay, what are the things that we're really, really doing well, that are really making an impact, that if we continue to execute on, will continue to drive positive things for the organization or for the individual creator? Great, we're going to keep those. Then what's the stuff that's just, we don't know. So you have to put that in a pile and make some decisions about it. And then you say, oh, yeah, this one's just a big waste of time. You probably already have some of those. So if you just do that, you can knock off 7 and 8 and say, good, we're just done with that. We're going to kill it. Like, let's say that you have a Threads account. And you say, I'm just going to keep the Threads account up, but I'm not going to post. I'm done with that. Or LinkedIn or whatever the case is.
Right.
But I think at the end of the day, I don't know if you agree with this, Robert, but I think you have to say, look, we have to pick one of these things to excel at. We have to figure out who our audience is. We have to figure out what our content tilt is, what that differentiation area is over all the other content clutter out there, and then go full 100% into, we're going to have the best newsletter. We're going to have the best podcast. We're going to have the best YouTube series. It's always the thing. And that's where a lot of content creators, they get into trouble because they want to do all the things. And you can't do that. You always have to come back to the one thing and diversify later. And Linda, it sounds like we might have diversified too soon instead of getting to the point where what's the thing we do best and focus on that first. I don't know if you have a take on that, Robert.
I do. I mean, and I agree to a point, which is, one of the things that we often say is to get good at that one thing, right? To get good at the, focus on the one channel. Yeah. And in many ways, it's great advice that is impractical in reality because we do need to be on a lot of channels. The key, I think, is the focus and attention. You obviously can't put the same level of focus and attention, nor should you put the same focus and attention to all the channels. So you actually do need to be discerning about which channels you're actually going to use, right? And which channels will come off of that list if you decide to go on a new one. For example, I am considering and seriously considering and not seriously considering, I've made the decision that I'm going to get onto TikTok and I'm going to start doing TikTok. That's going to come at the expense of something else. And I haven't quite made that decision yet, but it will come at the expense of my efforts.
It's going to come at the expense of this podcast.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, I'm done with this whole marketing. Exactly. I'm going on TikTok, folks. Yeah.
But so that's one thing. The second thing is that you in order to make that decision, I think you have to have, and this is what we see when we go in and talk with clients about this. The biggest missing thing is, why are you on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Twitter, Google, whatever it is, right? Why are you on there? And usually there's no good business objective to it. In other words, we haven't really formulated a formal goal or objective about what it is we're trying to do with that particular channel. We're on that channel because we feel like we have to be on that channel, or we're on that channel because that's, quote unquote, that's where our customers are. That's not a good reason. In other words, it's because your customers are there doesn't necessarily mean you need to be there. It might mean you need to advertise there. It might need that you need to post some, ways to pull them out of there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's where you want to build your community. And we want to think a little more flame and attracting the moths rather than sort of trying to go to all the candles, right? And so it's the idea that you have to have a goal or objective. And what I would encourage you to do is to think of those goals and objectives. I always think of social media like a river. It's never the same place twice. And so if you're trying to pull in an audience to flow somewhere, where do you want that audience to flow? Is it to your email newsletter? Is it to your website? Is it to your e-commerce channel? Is it to, and start to, is it to your customer help section? And having a goal or objective for each of those, and then prioritizing them based on those goals and objectives. Where does it hurt the most at the moment? And then rebuilding your story on those things becomes a lot easier, because that then is just about cadence and the kind of content that you're posting there.
Yep. No, I think but the point is, from what you're saying, you can be on a platform, but you don't have to have a content creation strategy on that platform. You could just set it up as a listening post.
Sure.
Which that's exactly right. Your audience is there. It's like, say your audience is on Threads.
That's right.
Okay, you can be there. You don't have to be posting anything. You can just be there to comment on customers or be a part of their community or whatever the goal is, to your point. I guess that's the best advice is, what channel do you have? What is your ultimate goal with what you're trying to do there? And then how you're going to execute on that goal.
Yeah.
If you don't have a goal for a certain channel, that's probably a pretty good indicator that you
just stop. So go get your namespace, go get your namespace on every new channel that comes out.
Yeah.
That's part of our jobs as marketers, is to go get our namespace, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to, jump in the pool head first, right? Build a strategy, build your business strategy around that, and look at those social media outlets as outlets. They are literally just content platforms by which you want to flow audiences into your sphere of influence, whatever that sphere of influence is, your newsletter, your e-commerce, your website, your print magazine, your event, whatever those things are. They become just little streams that come through, and that's your goal with the content that you're trying to put out there.
Why don't we play the next question? Because this
absolutely,
right in from this one.
Here's awesome,
question.
Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Brittany Gardner, and I have a question about something that was said, I think in passing, on a recent episode. It was said that you should not start a podcast until after you've built an audience. And for what it's worth, I agree, podcasting is not going to build an audience for you. But this feels very much like something that a listener might procrastinate over. So is that really what you meant? Don't start a video channel or a podcast or anything like that until after you've built an audience? Or is it more something that could be done in conjunction with as a situation? Curious on your thoughts.
You made this comment. Yeah, you made this comment last time. So why don't you start first about your...
Did I make this? Position. Did I talk? Yeah. Was it me? Is it my fault?
This was yours. This was yours.
Okay. Go ahead. So Brittany, first of all, thank you very, very much for the question. I love this question. So if I'm about to conflict with what I said before, my apologies. I may have misspoke. But what I mean to say when I say starting a podcast and building an audience is that it's easier. It's just infinitely easier to build your podcast audience. And by the way, this is true for any platform really, but podcasting in particular, where podcasting is sort of it's not an owned media platform, right? We are still dealing with, we think of podcasting as an owned media audience, but it's really not, because we don't know who the people are. They're not addressable. We are still dependent on the algorithm to get our content in front of our audience. And so it's starting with a podcast. It's just infinitely harder. Not necessarily, you may go viral. You may have a wonderful podcast that gets an incredible amount of engagement right away and builds quite the following. But then your job is to then get those podcast listeners to become email subscribers, or get those, and that, if that's your goal, right? And that comes back to the goals and objectives, of course. But if you have an email newsletter list, or if you have a database of your audience, or if you have an existing audience already, it's just easier to get a podcast to that minimum viable capability to serve whatever goal or objective you may have. It's not necessarily a binary, you should do this or you should do that. It's just easier, I find, from all of, so in other words, when I have seen companies do this, when they've launched a podcast after they had their email or community built, it was they had instant audience. They had instant audience, and it was just a different kind of experience. And then when I've seen them launch a podcast as the first thing that they're doing, I've just seen them struggle with trying to turn that into other levels of audience. So it's just an easier transition, I think.
It's discovery so much more difficult with just a podcast.
That's right.
Really what it comes down to. I mean, when you say algorithm, there's not really much of an algorithm out there, because you're not going to some podcast search mechanism and saying, what's a great marketing podcast, or whatever.
Well, that's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point.
You're just not going to. Now, maybe you'll hit it big on YouTube, which seems to be really good for findability of podcasts, or better. Right. But there's, you're not going to Spotify necessarily, or Stitcher, or these other platforms, and searching for, I'm going to search for this kind of podcast. You find out in other ways. So if you're going to go heavy into podcasting first, you have to focus on marketing in that platform, in audio itself. So I always say, if you have a newsletter, you should be marketing in other newsletters. If you have a podcast, you need to be marketing in other podcasts. So that means get on as many podcasts as you can as a guest, or figure out some partnership barter programs on other podcasts that your audience or potential audience might be hanging out, and do some deals that way, or pay something to get that out there. It's much more difficult. And that's where I think you and I have seen that, where somebody will start a podcast, they're very excited, and they say, oh man, I've only got 50 downloads this week, or 75. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you could do the long haul and keep working it up and word of mouth and whatever, but it is really, really difficult. To your point, we started this podcast and we had the Content Marketing Institute community behind it, an email, and they said, hey, Joe and Robert's got a podcast, and we instantaneously did pretty well.
That's right.
Because they're like, okay, what are these two chuckleheads talking about? And that's right. We kept some of those people. So yeah, I would just say, but if a podcast is your platform, and that's where, it's like the sorting hat in Harry Potter, you have a choice about where you want to start your platform. If podcasting is it, you can do that, but know that you've got a whole different set of marketing problems when you go forward in that area.
Harry Potter. That? I know, it was a good one. It's a good metaphor.
Well, I mean, a lot of people say, where should I start? I mean, should I start where my audience is at? Like you said before, I mean, no, you're not necessarily a good one. Like if you have a talent or a passion for something, then use that. If it's YouTube, or if it's LinkedIn, or if it's a podcast, great, go ahead and do that. You do have a choice in the matter. But
that's right. And that's not to discourage anybody from starting a podcast. But one of the things I want to make sure, Brittany, is that you're not taking my comments as a discouragement to start a podcast, because regardless, if you've got a good business goal, or if you've got a good personal goal, or you just want to start a podcast, please go do that. Enjoy, have fun. All I want to say is that it's easier if you've got an existing audience.
Yeah. Did you know that stat that we talked about it on this? I think it's more than half of all podcasts have less than three episodes.
Yeah. It's
so
incredible.
People get very excited about starting things.
Yeah.
and then they don't not so committal.
That's
no.
right.
So
yeah, that's exactly it. Which has basically put a bit of a kibosh on people wanting to subscribe, right? There is a level of audience frustration that exists today with, and this is, by the way, this applies to Netflix as well as other streaming shows too. There is a documented and well-researched trend that people are not as willing to give new shows a chance because of how capricious these streaming networks are with how many episodes that they do, right? So many of them will cancel after the first season or leave you hanging after the first season with no season 2, and it leaves on a giant cliffhanger, and you're like, so it has really put a real damper on people's willingness to give new shows a chance. So
it's true.
It's a challenge in podcasting too.
I haven't added a new episode or a new podcast to my regular listening for a long time.
Oh, I have. I add them all the time.
Well, see, you're
better, but I jettison them all the time.
Thank you for throwing me under the bus there. You are a better person than me.
Well, that much has been established for many years, my friend.
Yeah, I was saying, everybody knows this.
That's right. All right. Now we get to our rants and raves section here, where Joe and I go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave. Before we do that, actually get over to our site, won't you? thisoldmarketing.com. We've got all sorts of wonderful goodness over there for you, including, by the way, there you go, Brittany, our email subscribers, where you can actually subscribe to either Joe's Tilt newsletter, which is always a wonderful thing to get into your inbox, or our little Experience Advisors newsletter as well, which is if you're in the business of creating experiences or content for clients or your own boss, then here's the wonderful newsletter for you. We also bookmark, obviously, all of the show notes that we've got, the links that we've got. So if you wanted to read about any of these articles that we've talked about today, those are there. And it's where you can leave us a voicemail or a wonderful message, just like Brittany or Linda did. And so thank you for all of those. We love all of that stuff. We love show ideas. We love the questions, all those sorts of stuff. Get on over there, thisoldmarketing.com. Okay. Now, do you want to go first? You're talking about Macon. You can go really quickly.
Quick. Yeah. Real quick. I'm at the Marketing AI event from the Marketing AI Institute, Macon, this week. I know for sure that the numbers are going to be at least triple the amount of people that were there last year. I'm just so proud of the team, Paul Raitzer, Kathy McPhillips, the entire team working over at Marketing AI Institute, because Paul Raitzer had a very successful agency. PR 2020 was the first HubSpot partner agency, actually, and really believed that the next big conversation in marketing would be around AI, and believed this a long time before any of us saw this opportunity, and said, I'm going to sell my agency and I'm really going to go 100% into marketing AI, and created the Institute and started it very similar to a lot of the things we've been talking about on the show. Started with a blog, started with an email newsletter, and then expanded into a very popular podcast that they've been doing for quite a while. And then the event, Macon, which I think, COVID aside, I think they're in their third or fourth in-person year of doing this. Yeah. And just to see it go from, hey, it's not quite there, it's not quite there. And it's familiar to us, I think, because you and I struggled in 08 and 09 and 10 and getting people on the content marketing train. And then in 11, everything took off. We're like, oh, it finally and I feel it's very similar. It happened with AI. And of course, the launch of ChatGPT in November of last year made a big difference in Paul's business. And I'm so happy for them that they're really making it. And I just see this as the turning point of their whole business model taking off. And they're talking with amazing companies from all over the world, trying to help them figure out. A lot of those people will be talking about their case studies at the event. So I just wanted to throw kudos out to them for another successful event, another successful business model for Paul, and having the guts to make the jump before people really believed that this was going to be a thing. So there you go.
It's an amazing thing he's done. It's truly an amazing thing. It's one of those. There are times in your life when you look at people and you go, you sort of end up having one of two reactions, right? You go, I could have done that, but then you go, but you didn't. You know what I mean? And then there's the, man, just when good people win, it's just when you see that happen because they stuck to their beliefs and really went all in on a thing. And it's just, when good, you see good and bad people end up winning in those situations. And Paul is just one of the good guys. So it's really great to see him and the entire team there, because the entire team has come together, honestly, to build what it is right now. And so it's not just Paul, but it's in large part led to him.
Mike Kaput over there has done a great job as their content officer. I mean, they're just lovely people over there. But at the same time, or even before Paul and team launched that business model, there were a lot of people doing like, hey, we're going to cover AI on the podcast.
Sure, of course, yeah.
They were going to do this little thing, but nobody committed to it all in like Paul did. And I think that's where the difference, where if you type in anything on marketing AI and they come up and they work really hard at getting that spot.
It's been amazing. And, by the way, much to the chagrin of me, because I was, one of the first things when he and I talked about it a long time ago, I went, marketing AI, I think that might be too niche. I think you may want to just go AI. And he was like, no, I think it's just marketing. I'm like, all right,
Another example of there's no such thing as too niche.
That's right. A great example. A great example. Another example of where I'm just so wrong. I'm just so wrong about it. Things.
Well, yeah. I mean, how many hours of audio could we fill up with the amount of times that you and I were wrong?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
But that's really what this show is. It's a show of horrible and tedious marketing.
It's a little bit like the George Costanza thing, right? Where it's just like you do the opposite. You do the opposite of what it is we do, and you'll be fine in life. Yeah. All right. Very, very quickly here. There's a news item that came out this week from Axios. And basically said that Vox Media, which of course is a big media company, will be dropping their own content management system. And that's fine. That news is whatever it's going to be. Basically, they're saying that Vox Media, they have, New York Magazine, they've got SB Nation, they've got, a number of titles. They had their own custom proprietary content management system called Chorus. And basically it powered all of their websites. And that's not uncommon that you have media companies who built content management systems. And the reason for that, and I know this because I came out of this industry for so long, is because most of the content management systems that were invented in the early 2000s, big enterprise content management systems, all sprung from a company. It was sort of like the patient zero, if you will, was a company called Vignette, and it was built around building websites for media companies. And CNET was was where it really originated. But then it very quickly the market went to helping product and service brands manage their content. So you had, all these big enterprise, everybody from Microsoft to Oracle to Hewlett Packard back in the day to independent companies like Interwoven and my little company that I was part of the founding of. We were all in this enterprise web content management space, and it all went to corporate. And they really weren't good for media companies. They weren't good for that collaborative workflow. They weren't good for editorial. They weren't good for, they just weren't fast enough, nor were they sort of built to be around news and editorial. They were built to be around static pages and about us and press releases and product pages and all those kinds of things. And so the market's really divided. And so you had media companies really building their own stuff. And so interestingly, what's happened then sort of in the latter, 2010s, 2015, et cetera, is you had a lot of these media companies go, well, we're good at this, right? We're good at this content management thing. And so we'll build a business unit that is basically going to use our content management system and sell it. And the Washington Post has done this before. The Vox was actually doing it. Gawker was doing it when it licensed its tech platform called Kinja to other media companies. Washington Post, like I mentioned, and others really started to think of this as a new business that they could get into, which was enterprise content management. And probably most notably, although weirdly not very known even in the marketing and MarTech stack, is Washington Post had a lot of success with this. They had a lot of success with licensing out their CMS to brands that wanted to manage their websites using this. And so what we see here is all of them are starting to divest themselves of this idea of trying to figure out. And what it reminds me of so much, and we've been doing a lot of work in the last 6 months in looking at media companies and content studios as well. So the T-Brand studios, sort of the custom content consulting and agency studios. And what they're finding out is what product companies have figured out for a long time, that services is hard and it's a very tough thing to do. And media companies, now that they're getting into the software and the services business, are discovering those business models are very different and hard as well. And so it's an interesting thing to me that in many cases, both with content studios and the software business, that they're deciding these days, instead of evolving that business model or spinning it out or trying to figure it out, just divesting them. So just going, you know what, this is too much trouble and not enough benefit. That's a fascinating trend to me. I think it's wrong, by the way. I think there are ways to make this work, both on the content studio, media company as agency, basically, as well as media company as software provider. And I think it does feed into what we've talked about at all, diversifying revenue streams, becoming a platform company, all those things. You just have to really kind of put the care and feeding into the product development and into the business model, very much like what Amazon did with their Amazon Web Services, and became a software enterprise company in the process, and have also done with Amazon Prime becoming a media company. They've just understood that it's different business models, need different skill sets, need different approaches, and they've been organizing it accordingly. So it's not that it can't be done, it's just it's difficult and hard. And I see news like this and I go, I just wish they had taken the adventure to heart.
It's interesting that when you go that direction, you have to probably bring in different talent.
That's right.
As well.
It's tough. Yeah.
It's I was listening again back to the Mr. Beast podcast where the manager was talking about launching the Feastables brand and how they had to bring in people that really understood retail.
Yeah.
Because it's moving from a media business model to selling candy bars on the shelves of
very
Walmart
different
all over the world is a very, very different model. And you need different people to do that. And I think sometimes, when I was at Penton Media, and it was basically an advertising-driven organization or an event-driven organization, and they said, okay, we're going to do the services model and we're going to offer consulting, whatever. They started to bring this, we'll have this same salespeople that sell advertising can sell consulting. And you're like, oh, God, that's cute. That's cute because it rarely happens. It's a totally different animal when you do that.
That's right.
A lot of people don't realize that.
That's exactly right.
So, anyways.
All right. Well, what do you? So you're at Maycon. I'm traveling to Toronto. It's going to be a busy week for us both, I suppose.
Over to YYZ Airport.
Over to YYZ, and then the 9.5 hour drive from YYZ to downtown Toronto, which it always seems like to get
it's always
longer and longer.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even when you're flying internationally too, there's always so many great options out of Toronto, YYZ Airport, and
so few going in.
It's like, don't take it. Don't take the bait. It's cheap and it looks right. But when you get there, you're going to be there for 2 extra nights because something's going to be canceled.
Exactly.
It always happens that way.
That's so
We've
funny.
all spent so much time in Toronto's airport.
Yes. That is another you had a couple of those this episode.
Jeez, it's
fantastic.
Unfortunate. So as much as we have a lot of really good friends in Toronto, but I can't say I'm big fans of the airport. Could you just
surrender pronto or we'll level Toronto? Somebody can answer the movie that comes from.
I
not
can't.
Canadian. You can?
I can't. I don't know that one.
Oh, you don't? Surrender pronto or we'll level Toronto. It's from a movie called Canadian Bacon that came out.
John Candy, right?
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Okay.
Funny movie.
Okay,
Yeah.
I remember that one.
It's Alan Alda that says that he's the president of the United States and they invade Canada. So surrender pronto or we'll level Toronto.
For 30
it's
years.
Good. Yeah, no, it's a long time ago.
You're really dating yourself now.
I am indeed.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you. We won't date you any longer. This is, we'll see you next week on another episode of This Old Marketing. And until we see you next week, just remember in the meantime, it's your story. Tell it well. See you next week on This Old Marketing.